Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm Marilyn and my channel is Making with Marilyn. Now I do all things crafty, but on today's video, I'm going to make a wood and acrylic project. I was playing in my craft room yesterday. I made a couple of wall hangings for my great nieces. They turned out so cute that I wanted to recreate one for me so that I could show you on a tutorial. Let me show you what theirs look like. Now I started with the frame that I got from the Dollar Tree store, and then I used 3 layers of acrylic. On this one, I used pink acrylic in the back, yellow for the second layer, and then on top, I used a sublimatable acrylic. For the other one, I just reversed the colors, and here's how it turned out. So today, I'm going to recreate this one for me. It's going to be a little bit different. I ran out of these frames, so I made this small frame for myself. My colors are going to be different. For the back layer, I'm going to use this white opaque acrylic. For the middle layer, I'm going to use this beautiful purple acrylic. Now this is not opaque, so we're going to see how that turns out. And then the top layer is where I'll use the Sublimation acrylic. Now this is a PYD Life brand. I got this off of Amazon, and so I'll be sure and put a link to it in the video description. Notice how on the front of these, you see that sublimation layer. For mine, and I printed two just in case I messed one up, for mine, here's the image I'll use. So if you want to see this project, sit back, relax, and let's get started. Now, before I change the camera angle, if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing that. If you do, tap that bell and then select the all notifications. That way YouTube lets you know anytime I upload new content. Now that we're on the computer, let me go ahead and open Xtool Creative Space. This is the software that Xtool uses to run its lasers. Now let me drag this so you can see the whole thing. Now you can use this to design some things. I typically use other software to make my designs. Then I use this software just to run the laser. But it does have some designing capabilities. All right, let me go up here. I'm going to go to Image. And then let me find mine. It's called Laser something. There we go. Laser Flower Layered 2. We'll go ahead and open it. All right, it came in 3 layers. Let's go ahead and drag those apart. So we have this circle. That is what I'm going to cut out of the Sublimation acrylic. And then it has the outline. This is the bottom layer. So that's my white acrylic. And then lastly, this is really what's going to make this so pretty, this middle layer. And that's what I'm going to cut out of the purple acrylic. Now I haven't turned on the Xtool yet because once I do, it's going to get a little bit loud in here. Typically, I turn on my Xtool before I really start doing anything. But so that you can hear me really well, I'm going to go ahead and leave it off for now. All right, this first cut is going to include this layer on the purple acrylic and this layer on the white acrylic. For now, I'm not going to cut this at all because that acrylic's a little bit thicker and it's going to take different settings. So the first thing I'll do is I'll go ahead and select this, and then right over here, I'm just going to say ignore. Once I do that, it means it's not going to cut or score or anything on this first cut. All right, let's move it out of the way as well. Now you don't have to move it, I just do that for peace of mind. Okay, let's go right back over here. Let me click on this background. Now let's find what material I want to use. So I'm going to click right here. And for this, I'm going to use this 3mm white acrylic. So far, that has cut all my 3mm acrylics. I haven't tried this purple one yet, so we'll see how that goes. And then we're going to click on this image, and I'm going to change that to cut. It's going to use a power of 100 and a speed of 20. Then I'm going to click on this image. I'll say cut, and the power and speed is the same. So at this time, I'm ready to go ahead and turn on the laser. Once I do and it connects, you'll be able to see the material in the bed of the laser. And that's going to help us place these designs in the correct place. Now, one of the beautiful things about the P2 is it has 2 cameras. It has one general camera where you see the whole bed of the laser. And then when you want to get really close and personal to something, to make sure that you're saving material, to make sure it's exactly in the right place, there's a second camera right by the laser head. I'll show you that here in just a minute. Now it automatically connected to it. Sometimes you have to click refresh and then you have to select your laser, but in this case, it just did it automatically. Now in my case, I want this back layer cut out of the white piece. And I'm going to place this really close over here to try to save this material. And then this is actually going to be cut out of the purple. Now that is extremely hard to see. Let's see if I can change the color of this layer. With it selected, this is layer 2, I'm going to say move to, and you can move it to any of these colors. It really doesn't matter. That's just for your own benefit. Now let's see if that shows up. Oh, so much better. So much better. Now remember I said that there's this camera that can get really close. That's what I want to use next. So I'm going to go right here and hit capture close view. Here's my little camera. So I take a picture or I have it focused where I want to look at. So I'm going to click on it. It's moving into place. There we go. I can click on this blue layer and I have plenty of room to move it a little bit to the left. I also have a little bit of room to move it down. Now in this case it's not super important, but sometimes you really want to get as much out of your material as you can. I think this camera is a super feature of the P2. Now let's go over here and let's take a picture at the top and to the left of this. So I'll hit capture close view. Let's go on the left side. All right, I see I can move it just a little bit to the left. And then I'm going to go capture close view again and take a picture up here. All right, I'm going to move it up just a little bit. I just don't want to waste any material if I don't have to. Now before I cut this, let's do a reality check. This should be on ignore, and I can see that it is. This should be on cut. It's set for output, which means that layer is actually going to process, and it is on cut. My power is 100, my speed 20, and then this layer, again, it is set to cut. Let's go up and look at output. It is selected. Again, a power of 100, speed of 20. Now remember, I haven't tested out this piece with these settings, so I hope it works. So far it's worked on all of my 3mm acrylic. So at this time I'll say process, and it's going to give me a little preview, and then I'll say start. Now all I have to do is I need to go over and push this button. So the laser's not going to take off on its own. You control when it starts by pressing this button. Now I went ahead and I put the other piece of acrylic in there, so let me click on refresh. There we go, now you can see it. Now I'm done with this image, so I can delete it or I can just say ignore. But this is the last time I'm going to cut this, so I'm just going to delete it. And the same thing with this. Now it's time to bring our little circle down. Remember, this is the Sublimation acrylic. And this is going to take different settings than the prior. So I'll click off of this. I'm going to go right back over here and pick my material. This time I'm using 6mm white acrylic. Let's go ahead and hit capture close view. And then I want to move this over so I don't waste material. So I'm going to select it, and then I'm going to use the left arrow. I'll move it to the left, and then the up arrow. Now these are just arrows on my keyboard. Move it a little bit further left, and just a little bit more in the upward position. All right, I think that looks good. So let's move it to cut. Remember, it's set to ignore, so we're going to move that to output. And let's see what settings it's going to use here. Okay, so it's still 100%, but it's slowing it down. At this point, I can go ahead and say process. It's going to give me a warning. Let's go ahead and say start, and here's the warning. Because you're cutting it at 100% and you have the speed down to 10, it wants to make sure that you don't have anything on that base plate where the scraps fall that's combustible. So you don't want wood, cardboard, cardstock, things like that. I'm fine with the acrylic being down there, so I'll say OK, process. Once again, I have to go over, press that button. We're going to watch this cut, and then I'll meet you back at the table. Now while those were cutting, I went ahead and I cut out one of my sublimation images. I cut up some butcher paper, and then let's take a look at these. Here's the sublimation acrylic, and the front and the back look great. There really is no cleanup to do on that. Then we have the purple layer. That cut is awesome too. I think I might use a little bit of alcohol on it. And then we have a white layer. It also looks great. Now the back has a little bit of stuff on it, but the front looks perfect. Let's clean these up. To do that, I'm going to use this really soft microfiber. I would say it's a towel. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's microfiber. And then I want to make sure I don't get any of this alcohol in that sublimation image, because if I do, it's going to ruin it. Now the front looks perfect. Let's see if I can clean up the back some. Not that you would need to, but I wanted to. Yeah, that looks better. Now on the purple one, let's go ahead and see if any of the little bit of stuff I see in there comes off. And it did. That looks good. Now I'm going to attach this to the wood. And I didn't think about this earlier, but my husband mentioned to me, he thought maybe it would stay on there better, which my other ones stay on there great. But you might want to scratch this up. So you could use some sandpaper, not a super fine sandpaper. You could use something to actually scratch it. That is something he recommends. I'm going to move forward without it. But if you want this to really stick to that, you might want to scratch it up just a little bit. That gives that glue more surface space and something to dig down into to attach to this. Now before we start gluing those together, let's go ahead and do the sublimation piece. I have my heat press set to 360, and I'm going to press this piece for 40 seconds. Then I'm going to rotate it and do it 40 more seconds. Now, I think I was talking about this earlier. This is one of those rare times when you actually don't mirror your image. Now, you can't tell it's not mirrored because it's an M. But on the other two that I didn't mirror the image because it's going to come from the bottom through that sublimation coating that's on the bottom, and it's going to be seen from the top. So I want to try to center that. Notice I made my design a little bit larger so that I wouldn't accidentally have some white on there. Do you hear our neighbor's dog? Her name is Calliope and she is beautiful. Okay, I'm going to pull this closer to me so I can see it. I think that looks pretty centered, so I'm going to put about 3 pieces of tape on this just so it can't shift. And I shifted it when I was putting that tape on it. So we'll move that back over. Let's put a piece up here. And then one more piece down here. Now let's move that over, get it where I really want it. Now this is heat resistant tape. Okay, that looks good. Let me kind of clean up. It has about 100 degrees to go yet. So give me a minute and I'll be right back. Now we're up to 360 degrees. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead. You can see I still have the butcher paper from the last ones that I did. I'll just reuse that. I like to put 2 pieces under this because when you turn this over, that ink is exposed. It's going to go somewhere, and I'd rather it go on the paper than on the pad of the heat press. So we're going to put 2 pieces under it, and then we're going to put this really, really close to the center of the heat press because that's where you're going to get good, even pressure. If you put it too far forward, back, or side, it's going to want to tilt some. So put it right in the middle. Now I know this is the good pressure because I used it on my other 2 projects, but you need to check your pressure. And then we're going to let that count down. I didn't put anything above it. Okay, typically I would put another piece on top of it. I use HTV Ront paper. It's never bled through the top, but I always put a piece over it, and this time I forgot. I got busy talking and just forgot. So when this ends and I open it and rotate it, I'm going to go ahead and add a little piece to it. And it looks like it's just about that time. We're down to 3 seconds. So on this press, you can just pull those out, rotate it. Let's put a piece of paper on top of it. And since it was in the center, it should be still in the center. So let's go 40 more seconds. All right, that should be good. So I can probably go ahead and turn this off. I'm going to move this out of the way. And then I just want to take this all the way out. And then I'm going to pick up my porcelain or ceramic tile. It's very smooth on the top. And I'm going to place it on top of my blank to pull out the heat and also just to make sure that as that cools, it's flat. I have not noticed anything with these kind of warping or curving like you do with 3mm acrylic, but I'm just going to do this. It's going to help it cool off quicker, more quickly, whatever the word would be. And then it's just going to be my insurance that it smooths out if it curved at all. Okay, doesn't take very long. Now with this acrylic, you can actually flip it over and look and see if it looks like it sublimated well. Now, did I forget to remove that coating? Oh my goodness, I sure did. Okay, so on this sublimation acrylic, it has a coating on it. Okay, there it's coming off with my tape. So there was this protective film, not only on the top, but also on the bottom. And that is unfortunate, but at least I can show you the difference. If you forget to take that off, you'll see what it's going to look like. See the coating? It's stuck down to that. And so my design is a little bit muted and just not as vibrant or crisp and clear as it should be. Good thing I printed 2 of those. All right, here's the other one, and I took off that film, and I promise you, I did not do that on purpose. I just printed 2 of these in case something went wrong. Lo and behold, it did. So let me turn this back on. We are going to redo this. Again, the sublimation coating is on this side, so I'm going to put it against my design. All right, let's flip this over and look at it. Yes, it looks much better than last time. I'm still going to let that cool off just for a little bit. In the meantime, we can go ahead and get some of these other pieces glued together. Now, I don't know if you saw it, but I did a video where I used this same sublimation acrylic to do some toppers for Stanley tumblers. I believe that in that video, I compared this to using just white acrylic for sublimation. I thought this looked so much better. The white acrylic just looks real matte, and you can tell the color's just kind of sitting on top. I love the dimension that you get with this. I'll show it to you up close and personal here in just a minute so you can see what I'm talking about. So the first thing that I want to do is figure out how to get these lined up, because they have to be a certain way. So that looks good right there. And I'm going to use some of the gel super glue on this side of the purple one. And I want to keep it in the middle. I'm not going to glue all the way out here because it would seep. I'm just going to put it in the middle. Let's see if I can get any out of this container. If not, I still have these just waiting in the wings. With this, you press on these sides, and that causes it to come out. It looks like I have a little bit. I don't know that I have enough to do this, but I'm going to try to get by with it. I think it might be. That doesn't look bad. It's just in the middle. There's not a lot. Okay, so let's see. That looks good. I'm going to go ahead and press down really, really hard. Now let me make sure those are lined up really nice. If they're off a tiny bit, it really isn't a big deal. And I can feel it's already bonded some. And so I don't want to break that seal. I'm going to go with it the way it is. Look how pretty that is. That is really, really pretty. Now just to hold it in place, I'm going to use some of these little clips or clamps that you can get at the Dollar Tree store. I use these so often and I love them. I like that they're pink. Okay, set that aside. Okay, this is fine now. I can go ahead and take this off. It's not going to bend. Again, this is a lot thicker than your 3mm acrylic. And so I don't know that it would bend anyway, but I just do that to be safe. Now let me compare this one to the one that I accidentally sublimated through the film. Hopefully you can see a big difference there. This one is a lot more vibrant. This one is muted. And you might not be able to see it, but the edges of this one are fuzzy because it was going through that layer of film and then onto this. I really hope that picks up on the camera. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and glue this to the center. And I wanted to add a little bit of kind of pinkish red. So you can see the polka dots are a light purple, and then I wanted that pinkish red around it. That's what it's going to look like. Once again, I'm just going to put this toward the center of my design or of my acrylic. And then I'm just holding it so I can see it. And I'm going to press down on this piece until I feel like it's starting to bond a little bit to the acrylic. Now, if I had a longer clamp in here, I would actually go ahead and put a clamp on this also, but I don't see one close to me. I have a larger one back behind me, but that's not going to get all the way to where I need it to be. So we're just going to press down on that. Now, typically, I would go ahead and put something kind of heavy on that. It looks off-centered a little bit, but I can't move it. If I move it, I'm going to break that seal. So as soon as I put it down, I should have been a little bit more careful. I think it looks great though. It's not perfectly in the middle, but it's fine. All right, I'm going to leave that there for about 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, just so that I feel like it's had a good enough bond before I start working with it to add it to my wood. All right, let's go ahead and move on with the project. Look at how cute that is. That's really pretty. Let's see what it's going to look like on this dark wood. I like that. Okay, so what I used before, what I'm going to use again is this Liquid Fusion. It is a very thick adhesive. If you know something better that I should be using to adhere the acrylic to wood, let me know. Let me know what you would use. But this worked really well on these other ones. I'm going to go ahead and take the whole lid off because it is thick and I want quite a bit on here. I'm going to start by putting a pretty big glob in the middle. That is a really thick glob. Because if the wood isn't perfectly flat, you don't want it to be concave or arched and not have a very thick piece because you want to make contact with the back of the acrylic. All right, I'm going to spread that out a little bit, but mainly I'm going to have the bulk of the acrylic or the bulk of the adhesive in the middle. As I flatten it down, it will spread some, but I want most of it in the middle. I'm hoping it doesn't squeeze out from underneath this. All right, let's just lay it down in there. And then let me see, try to get it centered pretty well. I'm just pressing down to kind of make that adhesive go through or go under more of the acrylic. Now here's where the painter's tape comes in handy because this really wants to slide around. Here in a minute, I'll have this positioned exactly where I want it, and then I'm going to go ahead and put some tape on it, and I'm going to let it set for a couple hours. All right, that's just enough to hold this in place so that it doesn't slide around or shift around, and it dries and it cures right here. So after that's been on there for a couple hours, I'll come back, we'll look and see how this looks. Now I waited all night because honestly I was so tired when I got done with the video last night that I waited until after work today to come up and check this out. And I am so disappointed. I used way too much of that glue under it, and look, it seeped out. So that looks terrible. The rest of the process I think was good. So if you make these, do not put that much glue under them because as this settles in and you push on it, it can seep out like that. But I didn't want to not show you that. I wanted to show you how this turned out. Other than that, it is really, really beautiful. And I'm just going to take that as a lesson learned. So here's the one that I made for myself. And then here's the two that I did for Remington and Piper. I think they turned out adorable. I think all three turned out adorable. I just learned a hard lesson on this one that don't overuse the glue. If anything, use a little less than you think you need. If it doesn't hold it down well, put a little bit more on it. The other thing is always remember, if you're using that PYD sublimation acrylic, it does have a protective coating on the front and the back, so you need to remove that. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope you have a good rest of your day. And until my next video, bye-bye.